All right, everyone, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to welcome you all to our webinar today, and thank you for joining us. My name is Chelsea Castrodale. I'm a food scientist at Claussen Quality Chocolate, and I'm a member of the AOCS Young Professional Common Interest Group. The AOCS YPCIG aims to bridge the gap between young professionals and established professionals. We do that by providing you with connections and who can offer advice and support you in your early career. First of all, I apologize that you can't see me right now. I had some technical difficulties, but you'll be able to see Anthony when he gets started with his presentation. So in today's webinar, Anthony Miller from AOCS will describe the process by which new methods are incorporated into the AOCS Methods Catalog. Anthony is the AOCS Technical Services Manager. He is responsible for managing AOCS's ISO 17034 certified reference materials for GMO detection, olive oil sensory panel LPP statistics, fielding inquiries about current AOCS methods, and administration of several ISO TC34 subcommittees. He graduated from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign with a master's degree in environmental chemistry. AOCS is currently leading a review of fats and oils methods in the Codex Alimentarius. If you wish to be involved with this review or other activities related to the methods, please contact Anthony at amiller@aocs.org. You can learn more about AOCS technical services on the AOCS website, and you can find that link in the chat box on the right of the screen. So if you have any questions during the webinar, you can type those into the chat box that you see on your screen, and we'll have time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So with that, I'd like to thank Anthony for being with us today, and I'll turn it over to him.
All right, thanks so much, Chelsea, for the introduction. Really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone that's here for viewing the presentation, and I hope you all get something interesting out of it. Like Chelsea said, my name is Anthony Miller. I'm a Technical Services Manager at AOCS. In this presentation today, I'll first be going over a bit of background on the AOCS Technical Department and the Methods Catalog, and then I'll talk a bit more about the method validation process by which new methods are incorporated into our Methods Catalog. So here's an overview of my talk today. I'll start by providing a bit of background on who's in the Technical Services Department and what we do. Then I'll give some background on the AOCS Methods Catalog and the method types it contains. I'll introduce the AOCS Uniform Method Committees and Subcommittees. And then I'll move on to the initial steps of a new AOCS method, including how and why a new method is proposed, the selection of a subcommittee for initial review, the preliminary review by AOCS staff, and the preliminary validation expected from the method proposer. I'll then describe the subcommittee review, the appointment of a study director, and the preparations for a collaborative study. I'll move on to describe the collaborative study and the statistical analysis that takes place afterwards. And then finally, I'll describe the final approval vote by the UMC and the publication of a new method. So at AOCS, our mission is to advance the science and technology of oils, fats, proteins, surfactants, and related materials, enriching the lives of people everywhere. And as part of that, the AOCS Technical Department provides analytical tools, materials, and services to assist laboratory professionals in maintaining or improving their excellence in the fats and oils industry. Here is our Technical Services Department at AOCS. We have myself, a Technical Services Manager. We have Dawn Shepard, the Laboratory Proficiency Program Manager, or LPP. We have Xin Wu, who is also a Technical Services Manager. And we have Scott Bloomer, who is the Technical Director. And to provide a little bit about what we do, the first thing we do is the management of our methods catalog, which involves managing the new methods process, method corrections, and fielding method questions. We have our LPP program, which has over 40 series. And for people who don't know, the LPP program is a collaborative proficiency program in which participants use similar methods for sample analysis and then compare their results with other labs using the same methods and samples. So it serves as a good gauge of laboratory performance, and it's often required for ISO 17025 accreditation. Within the LPP program, we have the Approved Chemist program, which acknowledges the most accomplished participants in LPP earned by superior performance. We also have a program called Certified Labs, which is a dedicated program that certifies labs for the referee analysis of soybean meal according to NOPA, or National Oilseed Processors Association trading rules. Finally, under LPP, we sell quality reference materials, or QRMs, which are available for quality assurance testing and internal quality control. And basically, these are leftover samples from LPP series that are provided with consensus values from collaborative data. We also work with major agricultural companies to produce certified reference materials for GMO detection. The program is accredited to ISO standard 17034 for the production of certified reference materials. And then finally, we also administer the U.S. technical advisory groups for several subcommittees within ISO TC 34 food products, including Subcommittee 2 for oleaginous seeds and fruits and oilseed meals, Subcommittee 11 for animal and vegetable fats and oils, and Subcommittee 16 for horizontal methods for molecular biomarker analysis. So moving on from that, I'm going to give a bit of background on our methods catalog. Over 100 years ago, AOCS official methods were envisioned as a source of reliable techniques to help cottonseed chemists standardize their methods. But since then, the catalog has greatly expanded into a collection of over 400 methods of analysis, covering the chemical characteristics of oilseeds, oilseed meal, oils and fats, soaps, detergents, proteins, and surfactants. We released the most recent 7th edition in July 2017. Our catalog is comprised of peer-reviewed and mostly collaboratively tested methods. There are some methods that have not been collaboratively tested, but I'll get to those shortly. The methods catalog is maintained on an ongoing basis by the Uniform Methods Committee, or UMC, and the input of our international users. Finally, additions and revisions to the current edition are released about every 2 years. The method catalog is composed of a few different types of method. We have our official methods, which are approved by the AOCS methods validation process and have undergone a successful and rigorous collaborative study. We also have recommended practices, which are methods that may be of interest or value, but they do not have enough validation data to qualify as an official method. They may or may not have been subjected to a collaborative study, and in some cases, the collaborative study may have revealed data variation that is unacceptable for an official method, but the method is still deemed valuable for simple, rapid, or qualitative analysis. We have standard procedures which utilize only specific apparatuses, such as standard procedure AM504, which is a fat extraction method for the ANCOM fat analyzer. And then finally, we have analytical guidelines which describe procedures recommended for evaluation of a specific product. An example of this is Analytical Guideline CC8F91, which contains recommendations for experimental apparatus and procedures for evaluation of bleaching clays. Moving on, I'd like to provide some info about the Uniform Methods Committee and the Uniform Methods Committee subcommittees, which are integral in the method validation process. So the Uniform Methods Committee, or UMC, is comprised of experienced AOCS member chemists who are very familiar with the AOCS methods catalog and oversee its development and maintenance. They meet yearly at the AOCS annual meeting to discuss the status of current and proposed AOCS methods and to hear new method proposals. They are also identify They also identify developing areas of interest in which AOCS may want to develop new methods. They maintain the AOCS methods catalog by declaring outdated or unused methods surplus. And they vote on any new method for approval. Then we have our Uniform Methods Committee subcommittees. UMC subcommittees are also comprised of experienced AOCS member chemists. These chemists are usually younger or more versed in specific sections of the AOCS methods catalog than members of the UMC. The UMC subcommittees are split up into several expertise areas, including chromatography, flavor quality and stability, mycotoxins, physical rapid and non-destructive methods, and seed and meal analysis. The subcommittees act to give the initial approval of a method so that it can go forward to a collaborative trial. So they are the initial gateway for the method at AOCS. I'll now move on to the initial steps of the method validation process. So the process begins when a new method is developed and the developer wants to have it validated and included in the AOCS catalog. New methods are mainly from industry need or regulatory requirements, but we also get them from instrument manufacturers or collect them in harmonization activities with other organizations such as ISO or Japan Oil Chemist Society. We encourage method proposers to present at the annual meeting during the UMC roundtable meeting using a slideshow that contains some preliminary validation data and shows that they basically worked the method out. By having this type of presentation, members of the UMC and UMC subcommittees can get an initial impression of the method and can provide suggestions to the proposer about any scope modifications or additional validations that should be done prior to submission to AOCS. If the method is deemed ready, it can be submitted for subcommittee review. First, a UMC subcommittee is selected by AOCS to conduct this initial review. They're chosen based on which has the most expertise in the subject area that the method covers. Along with the method, any validation data that the proposer has prepared will be sent to the subcommittee for review. Labs should try to provide as much validation data as possible in order to make a good case to the subcommittee. This data could include estimates of the total within lab standard deviation over the concentration range of interest, estimates of bias obtained by applying the method to reference materials, the recovery of spikes added to real materials and extracts, the effect of other substances that are likely to be present in the matrices of interest and that may interfere in the determination, and also results from comparison of the method with existing methods intended for similar purposes. Only the estimate of total within lab standard deviation is required, but any other data will increase the probability of subcommittee approval. Now we move on to the subcommittee review and preparations for the collaborative study organized by the study director. So once AOCS has the method and any validation data, we distribute it to the responsible subcommittee chairperson. The subcommittee is given 1 month to review, submit comments, and vote on whether the method is ready for a collaborative study. During this time, they are evaluating whether the method is clear and enabling, and if it is sufficiently validated to warrant the collaborative study. So they're basically judging if they can go through the method in their head and it makes sense, and if the validation data is adequate. Any comments, questions, or requests from the subcommittee are sent to the proposer, who addresses them and makes alterations to the method if needed. Approval by the subcommittee consists of greater than or equal to 2/3 affirmative votes, and if it is not approved, the subcommittee review process repeats after corrections by the method proposer. Once approved, AOCS will appoint a study director to see the method through the rest of the process. The assignment of a specific person as study director is essential to executing a successful collaborative study. This person is responsible for all aspects of the method revision from after the subcommittee review until the method is published. They are also responsible for the preparations for the collaborative study itself, and compiling the statistics from the collaborative study. It's important to note that AOCS Technical Services is always available to help them with any of these steps, but the process should be overseen by the dedicated study director. In most cases, the study director is the method proposer, which makes sense because they usually have a vested interest in seeing the method move through the validation process, and they'll keep things going on time. Sometimes, such as in the case when the method proposal comes from harmonization activities, a volunteer who has special interest in seeing the method approved as an AOCS method will assume the study director responsibility. After the subcommittee review, the study director will adapt the method to AOCS format. They also arrange for sample preparation and locate labs for the collaborative study. AOCS can aid the study director by suggesting labs from our list from previous collaboratives, which will help identify labs with experience in the general subject matter. Now, international guidelines require results from a minimum of 8 expert laboratories, and 6 need to be international or non-US if the proposer is seeking to have the method adopted by ISO. So those are the requirements for the collaborative study that the study director is looking to fill. So the first thing the study director has to do is put the method in AOCS format, and the editor-in-chief of the methods book needs to assign a method number in order for them to do that. To provide a little background on AOCS method numbers, the capital letter refers to the section of the methods book. The lowercase letter designates a group of related methodologies within that section. The number and letter before the dash refers to the number of the method within the group of related methodologies. The number after the dash indicates the year the method was published. So in case anyone was wondering, that's how an AOCS method gets its number at the discretion of the editor-in-chief. When the study director is adapting the method to AOCS format, the following sections have to be included. The title should describe the analysis being done and possibly the matrices it's done in. The definition describes the analytical technique and the analytes that are determined. The scope describes the product or matrix to which the method applies, any limitations, applicable concentrations, and any known interferences should also be noted. The apparatus/equipment is a generic description of the equipment used in the method, and if necessary, vendor sources for where to buy the equipment. In the reagent section, there should be a generic description of chemicals, including reagent quality and purity expectations. Any instructions for making solutions, including standard solutions, should also be included. The procedure section is composed of clear and unambiguous instructions on how to perform the method. Often it will be split into multiple sections, such as calibration, preparation of test samples, and then the main procedure. The calculations should include the exact manner in which analyte concentration is to be calculated and any instructions for reporting results. The numbered notes should contain any comments or additional explanations that the author thinks will be useful. Also, any chromatograms, spectra, or diagrams of specialized equipment should be included whenever possible. Finally, references should be included for the purposes of background information. When the method is properly formatted, the study director arranges for the preparation of test samples. In preparing for the collaborative study, samples need to be prepared to cover the matrices sought to be in the method and to cover the concentration range of interest in those matrices. The correct number of samples has to be prepared for all participants, so this requires quite a bit of planning on the part of the study director. We highly recommend that a small set of qualification samples be prepared for analysis by the collaborative study participants. These samples should have known levels of the analyte or analytes of interest in the matrices of interest. Qualification samples can be thought of as practice samples. For the samples that will be used in the collaborative study, Each lab needs to receive at least the same 5 samples in duplicate. So each lab needs to receive at least 10 total samples. A sample is defined as a combination of an analyte, concentration level, and matrix. Each sample is labeled randomly, so the analysts are unaware of which are duplicates. Several reserve sample sets should also be prepared and preserved for both the qualification and collaborative samples to replace lost shipments and to permit analytical checks when outliers occur in the collaborative results. It's also important that the samples are packaged in a way that is stable during transport to the participants. So once samples have been prepared, we can initiate the analysis of the qualification samples. However, before any lab can participate, AOCS must receive a signed agreement stating that the lab has the required equipment and return results by the dates stated in the protocol. Once all agreements have been received the study director distributes the method, a calculation spreadsheet, and a qualification samples to all participants. The calculation spreadsheet is useful because it minimizes the chance that labs will make errors when reporting their results. Analysts are encouraged to send comments to the study director regarding the execution of the method, which helps to refine the method prior to the full-scale collaborative. These final revisions to the method are often crucial to having a successful collaborative study. The qualification samples also, in many cases, prevent a failed collaborative study because labs that are making fundamental errors in the analysis are detected. They also prevent the scenario where a collaborative is conducted, followed by the realization that there are changes needed to the method. That's a scenario to avoid at all costs because any changes to the method after the collaborative study voids it and the collaborative would have to be redone. Results of the qualification sample analysis are reviewed by the chairperson of the UMC and the AOCS technical director, who ensure that the trial results achieve the expected recovery and repeatability. They also review the plan for the collaborative study and make the call on whether to proceed. If the UMC chairperson and the AOCS technical director agree that the results from the qualification samples are acceptable, we proceed to the collaborative study. At the beginning of the collaborative study, the study director will distribute the collaborative samples, the method in its final form, except for having precision parameters and a calculation spreadsheet. Participants then analyze the collaborative samples, enter their data into the calculation spreadsheets, and send them to the study director for statistical analysis. AOCS can aid the study director with a statistical protocol if needed. The statistical analysis is started with a one-way ANOVA to estimate the components of variance, the repeatability or within lab standard deviation, and the reproducibility or between lab standard deviation. That's followed by an initial estimate of sample means, repeatability relative standard deviations, reproducibility relative standard deviations, and the repeatability and reproducibility values with no outliers removed. For those who aren't familiar, the repeatability and reproducibility values are the 95% confidence limits on the difference between two test results within labs or between labs. Then there's the outlier treatment, which is a sequential application of Cochrane, single grubs, and paired grubs tests until no further outliers are flagged, or until there's a drop of more than 22.2% or 2 out of 9 participating labs. With the outliers removed, the final estimation of the precision parameters can be made. We end up with a table of precision parameters similar to this that gives us a good picture of how the method performed. These are good gauges of the performance of the method because the repeatability tells us how well the method performed within labs, while reproducibility tells us how well a group of labs was able to repeat the method using identical samples. The parameters presented slightly differ from method to method depending on what the study director thinks should be included. but some sort of stat on repeatability and reproducibility is always included. Here's an example from an actual method where you can see that each column presents the precision parameters for a set of duplicate samples. So for example, in the very first column, 13 labs, but 12 after outliers, analyzed duplicate cocoa butter samples, the data from which produce the repeatability and reproducibility precision parameters listed. Having completed the collaborative trial, the method is ready for a final vote by the UMC and potential publication as an AOCS method. At this point, the study director formats the method in its final form with the precision parameters included and sends the method to the UMC. The UMC is given 1 month to review, submit comments, and vote. Approval of the method consists of greater than or equal to 2/3 affirmative votes again. If the method is not approved because of issues with the method content, the author can simply address the issues and resubmit the method to the UMC members who voted no for a revote. On the other hand, if the UMC votes no because they feel that the collaborative study results are not good enough, they may suggest that the method be altered and the collaborative study redone, or they may approve the method as a recommended practice. Now, if the method does get approved, the method is typeset into official AOCS format. A PDF version of the method is immediately made available for purchase as an individual method on AOCS's website, and the print version is incorporated into the next edition of the revisions and additions, or the next edition of the methods book, whichever comes first. The method is now officially a part of the AOCS methods catalog. So that concludes my presentation on the path to a new AOCS method, and I'd like to open up the floor for any questions now.
Great, thank you so much. I definitely learned some really interesting things about how, I had no idea how methods become methods, so that was really great. So we'll just wait to see if any questions filter in through the chat. So just a reminder to use the chat function in the GoToMeeting to submit any questions. While we're waiting, I have one. What are some new methods that are currently going through the validation process?
So we have quite a few at different stages in the validation process at this point. One that we have is a method for synthetic antioxidants and vegetable oils. We have another for a fatty acid extraction kit. There's a method for high throughput MCPD GE analysis. There's also a rapid MCPD GE detection kit in development. There's a method from the Japanese Oil Chemist Society for 2-position fatty acids. And we have multiple ISO pulse protein methods being adopted currently. So we have quite a few different methods in the process right now.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like we have some exciting things coming.
Yeah, there should be.
Again, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat bar on the side. So what if someone is interested in joining a UMC subcommittee? How can they go about doing that?
So first, that person should be an AOCS member. But all they need to do is notify AOCS in their interest for joining specific subcommittees based on what their background is. We've also recently developed a set of questions that they'll fill out and submit back to our technical director. And basically that set of questions will give background on their analytical chemistry experience and their experience with method validation and development. The technical director will share that set of questions with the subcommittee chairperson, and that subcommittee chairperson will ultimately decide whether to welcome a new member into the subcommittee.
Great. We'll just wait a couple more minutes to see if any other questions come in. Okay, here's one more. are there cutoff values for repeatability and reproducibility where a method would fail the collaborative trial?
There actually is not any specific cutoff values, and it's at the discretion of the UMC. They understand that the repeatability and reproducibility variances will kind of spread apart as the limit of detection is approached for any given method. So they take that into account, but they're looking for as minimal a spread between the reproducibility and repeatability variance as possible. And it's really, since they have so much experience with different methods and seeing so many precision parameters, they make a good judgment about whether the method gets approved as an official method.
All right, thank you for that one. It doesn't look like we have any more questions, so I think we might go ahead and end a little early. But we want to thank everyone for joining us today. Anthony, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. That was very interesting. A reminder, still in the chat bar there, you have the link for the Lab Services website for AOCS. And, oh, yep.
I think a question may have gotten sent directly to me that you don't see, so I'm going to paste it into the chat bar.
Oh, great.
Do you see it?
I'm just seeing.
No problem. I'm going to send it right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Okay, here we have a question from Steve McCauley. Let's see. Regarding the publications, are collaborative study results published in any scientific journal?
Sometimes they are. Sometimes we'll publish them in our Inform magazine. Other times they'll be published if it's also a part of a publication in one of our journals. But it's not always the case that they're published. It's kind of at the discretion of the method proposer and the study director.
And then Steve also has a follow-up question about subcommittees. How long, if you join a subcommittee, how long is the appointment? Is there a number of years or a limit?
I believe our current rule for it is that they're automatically locked in for 2 years, and then after that 2 years, we ask them again if they still want to participate. There's no limit for how long they can participate for. We just like to renew to make sure they have interest about every 2 years.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for those questions. Are there any other questions? AOCS staff, did we see any others come through? Doesn't look like it.
Nope, that was it.
Okay, great. Then we will thank Anthony one more time. Thanks for your knowledge and for your time today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for attending. And if you have any other questions about the process, feel free to email me at amiller@aocs.org.
All right, great. Well, hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day, and we will see you at our next AOCS webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.